All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Bungou Stray Dogs, Season 2, Episode 4. The kids are dead.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oda,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. They say a wise man fears a calm man's wrath.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you just made the calm man pissed.
Really angry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's going to be on the warpath.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not excited. This is going to break my heart.
Yeah.
But, okay.
And it's probably not going to end with him surviving this either.
Probably not. At the very least, the person we knew is dead.
Well, I don't think that's
We're not
true.
quite there yet. Yeah.
It depends. It depends.
Okay.
Yeah, because him killing someone, then I think would be that. Though.
But then there's also the question of who did this, because it might not be as straightforward as we would like to think. And given that this is Dazai's backstory, I'm very worried.
Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a perfect way to have the finale for this backstory arc of Dazai's. We now have him officially having quit the Port Mafia, show that he goes underground, or at least essentially goes and disappears, and then there's a 4 years gap of time in between him leaving and actually then picking up the story with Atsushi coming and joining the ADA.
Right.
Wow. So Oda Saku's death galvanized Dazai towards this end. If Dazai had just seen him die, in a lot of ways, Dazai might have ended his life potentially in a short period of time afterwards.
Sure. Yeah. Double suicide, that whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But he certainly wouldn't have been something that would have made him leave the Port Mafia.
No.
But learning that, the leader of the Port Mafia, he set this up.
Yep, he set this whole thing up.
He specifically used Odasaku as a sacrificial lamb, basically, in order to, for this whole, scenario and stuff that he started, so that they could get their permit from the government.
Right, and it needed to be something that would specifically give, Odasaku, actually a full, testing of his abilities. So he had to rope in Ango into the situation as well, so that Ango, his friend, would be one of the people that would get him involved with it directly.
Yep.
So there was a really serious amount of genius maneuvering from the boss in order to make sure that Dazai, Ango, and Odasaku would all get involved with it. Although I don't think the boss predicted properly that Odasaku's death in this would result in Dazai leaving.
Right,
Port Mafia.
which is something where it's probably that's unfortunate, and yet, what's one more person for the sake of this organization?
Well,
right?
that's the thing.
So they got legitimized. That's huge.
Yeah, that's legitimization, which is a really big deal. But I think that this is where the boss screwed up. Is that because Odasaku is so tightly connected relationship-wise to Dazai, that connection strength is what made sure that Dazai was done with the Port Mafia.
Yep.
So, in that respect, if you look at the Port Mafia of nowadays, they are kind of not that much of a threat.
Yep.
And in some ways, the big difference is that imagine if they had Dazai in the present.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No, they'd be kicking all kinds of ass.
You could have Akutagawa and Dazai walking. There's the left fist, and the right fist.
Yep.
And they would be unstoppable. I mean, just have anyone really attached to Dazai, and suddenly they become gods because there's no defense against.
Nope.
Yeah.
Right. So it's in a lot of ways, it feels like this was kind of as a turning point point for the leader.
Turning port.
A turning port for the port mafia. Whether the leader was able to foresee it or not, because in 4 years also the leader has undergone a lot of changes themselves.
Yes.
Right? Because they, like, at the end of the first season, they were talking about how, yes, this isn't like how I would used to just go and slaughter people in droves on my own, you know. That 4 years is not the kind of time that I would expect that kind of change to happen without some kind of galvanizing event, right? Not just from the slow passage of time. No, because that's too short. But
and this is it.
This is it.
Yeah.
But it's insidious because all of a sudden the Port Mafia won't necessarily be at the same level of strength again, but that's okay because you're legit. This is like a form of retirement almost for the president, it seems like. Because you did it. You're done. You're made.
But
you know?
Look at the way the leader of the Port Mafia is in the present versus how he was back then.
Oh, yeah.
He looks disheveled.
He looks like he's aged a lot more than 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And while the manly stubble, you know, silver fox kind of...
it looks messy. He looks unkempt and just like he hasn't eaten well, like in the last
like there's
bit.
like maybe he's lost vision and purpose because all of a sudden what is there to struggle for, you know?
Maybe. One of the things that I'm really excited about, though, about how this is going to tie in back to the whole thing with Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald and all of them, is that we'll have our full-on, you know, chaotic gang war, basically.
Right.
But Port Mafia might be one that's maybe owes a little bit of a debt to Dazai, given how things went here, because one of the things that could have happened, I think, and this is something I'm curious to know whether or not it did happen, but Dazai could have done a lot more on his way out.
Yes.
And something tells me that he kind of tried to split and just disappear and go underground because he knew thereuld be enough fallout just with him leaving because he's an executive.
Right.
But
so
but I don't want to go into theory stuff right now.
Well, okay.
I just wanted to say that as like a thing because we still have to talk about Dazai and Otasaku's.
I think it was Otasaku's final words that stopped that.
Okay.
You know,
sure.
And because one of the things that I was kind of curious how it was going to go in this arc, right? Because I absolutely love this arc. This is my favorite arc of Bungou so far. Although Bungou doesn't usually do arcs, but
it's
So this
best
was
stuff in the show.
Best stuff in the show thus far. It was absolutely fantastic, right? One of the things that I was kind of curious about because a lot of the things that they set up were not like hard to predict of like what is going to happen in like a broad strokes thing. Like they even had Edogawa Rampo run into Otasaku as he's going and be like, don't go where you're going to go. You're going to die. Right. Like there were multiple people being like, danger, Will Robinson. Right. Yeah. But that wasn't the point.
That wasn't the point. Yeah.
And one of the things I was curious about is how is Otasaku going to die in a way that will galvanize Dazai to leave and also to change, right? Because
change is the big thing.
Yeah, because the leaving of the Port Mafia would probably come about as a result of him changing, but he was such a completely and utterly different kind of person in the early stages of this arc than what we've seen in the first season that I was like, how's that going to work? Well, he's alone now.
Yeah.
There you go. And the dying wish of his only other friend was, hey, you're not going to find what you're looking for here, so
you might as well try something that's completely different. And in some ways, if people exist only to save themselves, then how can you better save yourself than by saving others, maybe?
Sure.
Protecting the weak.
Yep.
You know, looking out for the orphans.
And also, it's that kind of like remembering Otasaku as he does so, probably.
Yeah, there's something really beautiful also about the idea of the way that Dazai has kind of taken Atsushi under his wing in a way that shows that he's looking for still also just a friend. And we can definitely see that, a lot in people like Dopo and, basically.
Mainly Dopo.
Dopo, yeah, exactly. But even still, the fact that Otasaku died here He had his, singularity moment.
Yep.
He used that to have this really, really fascinating conversation with the leader of Mimic.
All in the future.
All in the future. It was a really cool way to present it, which made the fight just so tragic and wonderful and beautiful.
And the music and everything, and the two
awesome.
armies coming in to like also kill each other, and
they just all die
just from collateral damage, just from the the timely dodges and stuff.
But they shoot some of them.
Yeah.
But having then Dazai have this moment at the end where showing that Otosaku knew he was coming.
Yep.
And chose to die right here to give him also his last words in a way that he would listen so that he would save him.
Right.
So
because the one person he could save, even if he couldn't save the orphans, kind of a thing.
And he couldn't save himself either.
Sure.
So what I really, 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 really love about this is that Otosaku, in his final moments, gave Dazai the words and the visual, perfect presented image of what it looks like to be a good man, basically, is to sacrifice yourself in this measure, take your responsibility, take your burden, put it on yourself, and then use whatever energy you have left in that moment to save those around you and that you care about. So he basically just took Dazai and was like, hey, yes, I have to die. That's going to happen. It's going to happen one way or another. And I also don't really have anyone else to save other than you. So here we go.
And
I'm saving you.
Yeah.
You can take this or not, because you exist to save yourself just as much as I do as well. But the way we can transcend our humanity in that regard, the way we can go beyond what it means to be just hired killers, is to take that which we've dealt out upon ourselves and in that moment try and save someone else. And the fact that it all's perfectly conveniently timed fits in with the idea of his ability. So I love the way they set up the perfect cathartic ending while also ripping our hearts out, because we still don't want to see Otosaku die.
Well, yeah, like I believe it's the leader of Mimic, Jide. The way he said
it's
it.
Just Jeed, yeah.
Jeed. Is there a possibility that I could have changed things? That I could have become someone else? Not a soldier? Maybe. That's possible.
Yeah.
Right?
I can't see that far into the future.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about how they messed with like Otosaku's ability and Jeed's ability and everything. Because it's a totally busted ability, right?
Right.
And yet there are certain things that it can't do.
Yeah.
Because these people are still human, right?
Yeah.
Which then is fitting for Dazai's whole thing of no longer human, right? That it's that struggle and that grappling with the situation where they don't necessarily know what to do, right? Like imagine that. You can see into the future. So for the next, with anything that's within 10 seconds or something like that, you know exactly what you need to do, right? You can do the perfect thing. Yeah. But when it comes to like big life decisions, I don't know.
Yeah.
They're just like anybody else.
Yeah, they need someone else in that regard. So in that respect, they kind of needed each other in this moment to help them see beyond the initial, 6-10 seconds or whatever.
Exactly.
And then we're able to cast that ahead beyond to, in some ways, look back at their pasts and give extra meaning to it by sharing it. Because this is something that I really liked about the idea of there being an unwritten aspect of the story and they need to go write it themselves, is that sometimes you need to be living in the story that you write in order to write it. And that means, you write what you know, basically.
Okay.
But it's not just like, oh, I research it and I go and, get kind of a good understanding of how to communicate the thing. But you put on the emotion of it. You put on the burden of that story, and you let it basically leak out of the pressure that you're putting on yourself to basically create the story. And in the moment of their, locked in an eternal conflict kind of moment there that could last only a second, but that conflict ended up creating the story, if you will, because what came out of that was something that was a worthy ending.
Right.
So thinking about it from the standpoint of a third act, kind of setup here is we have, an ending that's really shit. The author was like, no, it's not worth reading, actually.
Basically, everybody dies. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody dies. It's horrible at the end. Haha, very meta. It's a backstory. We know it has the black pages around it, so therefore it's Oda,
Yeah, and it's Dazai's backstory,
Right, exactly. So it's all going to end horribly. But if you know that that's guaranteed, then what kind of story can you write in the midst of that?
Right,
or
what is that last
it?
shout into the void? Yeah.
Right, and thus you bring Dazai into it with you, and you say, no, you will not find any grand, super powerful meaning in this final piece of the story that we're all writing together.
And I don't need my ability to know that.
Well, but just like, you need to kill the false hope that Dazai has that he'll find it in these little like kind of micro life decisions that he's made that have brought him up to this point.
Sure, yeah.
Like he needs to drastically change everything.
Right. There's nothing that you will find external to yourself that will suddenly make everything fit or work or whatever, right? It's the thing of you have to, in the midst of that,
you have to change dramatically. Yeah.
Right. And
just pray.
Right, and learn to find some kind of tune that you can scratch out while balancing on that roof. It's the
yeah, great.
This is going to suck, right? This rock we're on is something where
pain.
Life is pain. Anyone who says otherwise is selling something. Like we are here to die.
Yep.
So what are you going to do before then?
Yep.
Exactly. Like
this is what I did.
Yeah.
This is what I did.
Right.
I really love the thematic punch of having death be something that gives meaning to the final message. There is something tragic, if you will, about how an artist is never truly great until they've died and passed on.
Yep.
And in like literal art or media expressions of art, like books, for instance, there really is nothing greater marketing wise than a passing.
Well, brings scarcity.
Stuff. Right, but that idea that now everything they've done is immortalized in perfection, despite the fact that when they lived, people criticized them for all the things that they did that don't really matter. So it's like, wait,
and what can you glean from that for the people that are still alive based on how the people that are treated when they're dead and all that stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now, Oda having his moment where he dies and says, I wrote a tiny little addendum onto the ending.
Right.
It's not going to really change the fact that the story is shit. But, story is shit, life is shit, it's painful and all that.
But I wrote my piece.
But I wrote that, and now what are you going to write now that you've read my piece, basically?
Yeah, it's something where I feel like this backstory, in addition to being Dazai's backstory and answering some questions and things like that, I feel like it kind of explains what the whole show's about, in a really nice way, because like the fact that the characters are named after writers. Why does that need to be the case? Right? That seems like it could
just
be
a naming convention.
Right, it's just a naming convention. It's just a stylistic choice. Yeah, whatever. Oh, but what if it was like a commentary on how we're all writing our stories, right? And how life is just one big story and we're all the main character of our own story, and what's it going to be like?
That fits almost, any context. So it definitely works.
But they brought it up in a
well, that's because this is a backstory, I think.
Well, no.
It's like it's already written,
Sure.
Right.
But they almost broke the fourth wall with it. They had someone who it's like, oh, the person that I was talking to was the writer. It's like, yes. So this person that wants to be a writer and felt like they couldn't because, they couldn't kill people if they were going to be a writer, then meets the writer of the book, that is then telling,
that's trying to convince them to stop being a killer so that they,
right.
It's fun. It's really fun. Yeah. But in the general main story stuff there, though, it seems primarily to be used as a naming convention to infer some elements of their struggle and characterization.
Exactly.
And thus now with Dazai, we know why, and we were kind of right for the most part, why he's suicidal.
Yep.
What's his connection to that? And therein basically lies his constant pain that he is bearing all the while. That he'll never see Oda again.
Nope.
But maybe he can have a really meaningful death that will give him permission to go see Oda again.
Yeah, possibly.
I really, really think that in some ways, what could be seen as a very odd choice to have that be an aspect of Dazai's character now makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, it made a lot of sense once we even got into this arc of the story as well.
Sure.
But one of the things that's interesting is that because the story of Dazai was basically started along with Atsushi's, like there's no real beginning of the story before season 1.
Well, right, yeah.
Other than, of course. But basically the idea that Atsushi is the main character. Like if
Sure.
Dazai was the main character, for instance, we would have had story of him before Atsushi was introduced. And we would have been able to see maybe if he had done this saving and protecting of the weak and orphans and all that stuff before this, right?
Even before this backstory even.
Oh, no. After the backstory.
Okay.
But before we see him doing it. This is his first instance of it, is my point.
Oh, okay.
Meaning that if this is his first instance of it, this could have been also the first instance of where he's now like, I'm doing the good thing, right?
Sure,
so now I
sure.
can go die.
Right.
Now I can...
Yeah. Okay, so
It's obviously something that he's done a lot before this because
Right,
Dopo makes a point of how he's like, he's done this. He does this a lot.
Yeah, that is a good point.
But I just love the idea of it being a thing that
Dazai's on his own journey as well.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
and he's fairly new to the journey, right? He was in hiding for 2 years, and
then he probably had 2 years with Dopo and
right. But 2 years, 2 years is especially not a long
that's
time.
nothing.
That is
really nothing.
absolutely nothing. So
especially given how young he is.
Yep. So yeah. I'm very curious to see how this will continue into the rest of the second season because the stuff that we left off on in the first season
is very different.
But we also had a couple characters that were introduced in here that could theoretically carry over. The main one that feels like they could carry over is the ability user department head guy.
Yeah.
Because he seems like he's
got a serious voice actor too.
He's got a serious voice actor, and he wears the traditional Japanese garb and everything. Like he is very much like I am going to be like high up in plot relevance at some point, probably way later down in the story.
Right, and he might not be anyone extremely important in the organization itself, but
Sure.
he might be just middle management.
Right.
But there is also a possibility that he's someone that could be sat at a table with what's his name?
Ango?
Our leader of the ADA.
Oh, the president.
Where is he?
Fukuzawa Yukichi.
Yes, exactly. All men are created equal. Like
Yeah, like the fact that he specifically mentioned the president, like he knew him. He's like he's a man of integrity.
Right, exactly.
Like it's like okay, all right. What the hell did the president do to get that thing? Because this is all something that the Port Mafia had to do to get that piece of paper.
Right.
The ADA is small.
And they just have it.
Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, the president pulled some strings.
He pulled some strings, indeed.
On a goofier note, but they might have introduced a character note.
Oh, yeah.
The cat? Sensei?
Yeah, so...
It keeps showing up.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of this little thing... Now, it might have just been hey, it's a visual cue to tie this arc together because at the very beginning, at the very, very beginning, Dazai was talking or sitting next to the cat.
And calls it Sensei because it gets out of the way for Osaku.
Yeah, because it's all wise and stuff. But then it shows up again at the end of this episode.
I have some whack theories about that.
I think it's a person.
I think it's a person too.
Yeah, and
or
at
the very least,
to transform.
Right, or it's something where it's like this is like the familiar of a person, So it's either like a person or like a proxy, for a person or somehow.
Yeah, it's just there's no one that comes to mind immediately as like this is who they are. And there's also no one that Dazai in the backstory called Sensei. So,
right.
Is it a clue that
And I don't think there's anyone in the present that he
No, but
calls
there might
sensei.
have been. There might have been.
See, that I had this random theory. It's super dumb because it's totally not the case. But just as like what if the president had a cat familiar and that was his ability? Just as like something dumb and anticlimactic.
I know. Equal.
I know.
It doesn't make sense at all.
But neither does be not defeated by the rain. You know, like
No. That makes sense. Be not defeated implies strength.
Well, okay.
That literally implies strength.
But there's some way a cat can.
But
I just love the idea of the president just being like, yes, right,
and then going like, yeah.
and then the secretary just walks in and is like, sir, you have to stop that. No.
You didn't see me playing with my cat. No, I did not see you playing with
Snuffles.
But y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yes, if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.